All day. Nick Diaz, ladies and gentlemen.
I play that all the fucking time.
Welcome back, and I can't wait to see you fight for the title. What's up, train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night. All day.
All day. Love
Nick
that.
Diaz, ladies and gentlemen, give it up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tabor Talk. Of course, it's freezing. Sunday, April 26th. It was snowing earlier. It's just total insanity. You know, last year we had a brutal winter. And this year was not so bad at all, but it's lasting too long, right? It's almost May, right? I always think of like spring baseball. I've always been a huge baseball fan, not so much these days. Well, now there's no baseball season, but you know, I was a younger man. Like it was always April, yeah, baseball season, you know, and so we're like a month in. If there were a baseball season, we'd be almost a month into it, and it's fucking snowing. Like what, you know? So all right, so I just started listening to Joe's latest podcast. I guess he did this on Friday. You know, he tapes them now. So he used to do them live, and now he tapes them and puts them up a couple of days later, a day or two. Duncan Trussell, all right, one of my favorite repeat guests, one of Joe's friends. Pause. I usually just basically live stream here. Real life intrudes. My wife asked me something. But anyway, so Duncan Trussell has been on, I don't know, a couple of dozen times since the beginning, and one of Joe Rogan's dear friends. I actually just saw that Joe tweeted saying, I am such a lucky man. I am so grateful that I have such an awesome friend like Duncan Trussell. Something to that effect. And I kind of got all gay, and I said, well, Duncan's lucky to have a friend, you know, little fucking gay fest, right? Kissing each other, sucking each other's cock, as they say, right? So this is basically what this video here is about, is Joe's amazing friends, his repeat guests. I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, these incredible, interesting, smart, awesome guys, you know? So his comedian friends, and Chris D'Elia, Tom Segura, and Bert Kreischer, Greg Fitzsimmons, and then his fighter friends. I mean, you could name, I don't know, you could just rattle them off 100, like the most awesome, coolest guys ever, smart and interesting. I mean, come on, how awesome is fucking Duncan Trussell? Let me just play a little bit more.
Father, and this craziness went down, and your protection instincts.
Talking about
protective
Duncan's
instincts
beard.
kick in. Have you been thinking about moving elsewhere,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was thinking about that.
like Asheville?
Before, yep, we've thought Asheville.
Asheville's nice.
We've thought Georgia. We've thought, you know, it's a constant consideration, especially when you have a kid. And aside from like
Duncan just had a kid,
apocalyptic prepper bullshit, there's just a general feeling of.
He's such a cool ass hippie, you know, and he's so smart and interesting and just a great guy. So yeah, listen, I've been listening to Joe since 2009. So 10 years, right? And I don't get sick of him. Listen, I listen to them all. There are times when someone texted me and they go, "Oh, you think Rogan could be tiresome and annoying?" I mean, I know what you're saying. If you listen all the time, he does repeat himself a lot, and Joe is not the sharpest tool in the shed. Listen, he's smart. I think people underestimate him. He's not obviously intellectual. You know, he's a kind of a meathead. I mean, yeah, he's not Nick Bostrom, you know, he's not Elon Musk or whatever. But there's intelligence for sure. I think Joe, I don't know if you'd call it false modesty. I don't know. I posted something on one of the Joe Rogan forums, and I said, do you think Joe Rogan's a genius? And people laughed and were like, he's legitimate. Some people said he's legitimately stupid. I'm like, no, that's not true. Joe is, in my opinion, the greatest color commentator, MMA, UFC, 100%. That's intelligent. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The way he talks about bow hunting, automobiles, you know, all his hobbies, pool. He's smart. Everyone knows he's smart. Jordan Peterson said the same thing. Like, oh, we know who you are. You're just, and he talks about these really interesting ideas and concepts. Does he get lost sometimes? Yeah. You know, he's not a scholar. But basically, all the things he talks about are way up here. that cutting edge stuff. Like you listen to like a Sean Carroll podcast. Like there's a guy who's right theoretical physicist out there, Caltech, and he's just fucking beyond words brilliant, and he's a scholar. I mean, he's not Joe. That's not Joe. But Joe will talk about the very concepts that they're discussing in his own kind of way, in his own Joe Rogan way. So anyway, my sort of introduction to Joe Rogan. Maybe that's not the right word, but I didn't like the fear factor. I didn't watch his show, News Radio, back then. And I heard him. The first I heard him was on Howard Stern, and they were doing that silly tape. This is like 1998, 99, and that sketch he did with Brian Callen. It's the weightlifting thing where Joe fucks Brian Callen. It's a sketch, and it's fucking hilarious. And Howard Stern used to play it all the time, and he actually had him on. And he sounded like, I didn't know much about him. He just sounded like a stoner, like a guy who didn't give a shit, kind of like, And then UFC, of course. I mean, a UFC guy, and I initially I was like, yeah, I don't know if I like. It was weird. It's like, I don't know. Like he seemed like he was too cool for me, like the tattoos, but I was totally wrong about him. And then, fast forward when I really got into the podcast, I remember Nick Diaz, right? Nick Diaz after a fight saying, "Train by day, Joe Rogan at night. Check it out." Something like that, right? Classic clip. Maybe I'll throw that up and I'll put it up in the comment section. But Joe Rogan is just this amazing, interesting, nice guy. If you want to say anything, Joe is he's like an angel. He really is. And everybody loves him. Let me go back to fighting. And I just saw this recently, going back to the old UFC fights, like 1993. Well, Joe came along in 95, I believe, 96. Was it UFC 12 or 13? And I forget who he was talking to, but the fighter was nervous. And Joe was talking to me. He's like fumbling and tripping over his words. And the fight, I forget who it was. This is some guy we don't know. But he said, "Oh, sorry, I'm nervous. I look awful." And Joe goes, "No, you look fine." It was just like that kindness. You know what I mean? Like that Joe is a beautiful soul. Like he really is like this. Are you an angel or something, And it's weird. He's a fight commentator, brutal fighting, and he's the sweetest human being on planet Earth. He really is. Everybody loves Joe. All right, enough of the gay fest. Check out Duncan Trussell and Joe Rogan. Good friends, good books, and a sleepy conscience. Peace, love, and understanding.